This is an SM Media production.
Things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Sit Down right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. We've got a very special guest this week. I'm joined by one of the stalwarts of Scottish football, former Hibs, Dundee United, St Johnstone and Falkirk defender and the former manager of Brechin City, Darren Dods. Darren, it's a pleasure to be on the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
No problem. It's great to be asked. Thanks, Scott.
How are you doing? All right?
Yeah, not bad, but saying it's strange times at the moment. It's lockdown and everything else, and obviously lower leagues of football stopped as well, so it's definitely different times.
Obviously you're doing your further education just now, but do you still kind of keep involved in football in any way?
Yeah, do coaching with Fife Elite under 18, so then there's
Right.
four academy leagues and stuff, but we shut down before Christmas and went to start back middle of January, but that'll get pushed back. And well, up until obviously the first lockdown was trying to go out to games on a Saturday and getting my friends with John McGlynn and Paul Smith, so go and watch maybe some players for Wraith or watch a team for Wraith or something like that. But because of lockdown, everything else getting reduced, it's only seen a couple of games this season. Been fortunate to only see a couple of lower league games this season, but it's strange a Saturday with no football.
I know, definitely. Obviously, you've been keeping tabs in the season so far in Scottish football. Which been your takeaways for your former clubs like Dundee United and Hibs, etc.? You've been any kind of takeaways?
Yep. I think Hibs have got off to a really good start. They maybe started a wee bit lately, but I think they seem to be keen to get a few players in January, so I think they maybe push on. And I think sort of top six, pushing Aberdeen, so even still challenging for third. So if they finish third, I think it would be a great season. I think Dundee United's first season up, if they finish sort of mid-table and things, they'd probably get that good. If they could get in the top six, I think they would see that as an achievement. And then looking to Falkirk, I think the aim is to come straight back up, and they're top of League One at the moment, but obviously that'll be on hold, so don't know how long that'll get delayed for, and it was a knock-on effect or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Well, maybe we start in your career. Just talk a wee bit about your family life and where you grew up. You grew up in Edinburgh, didn't you?
Yeah, so always been from sort of Edinburgh and stuff. So went to school in Edinburgh and played sort of boys club football when I was younger in Edinburgh. So I've always been from Edinburgh.
And as well as that, like obviously your boys clubs days. Like, what was your memories when you're starting out in football?
So just sort of played at school, and then didn't join a boys club team till like under 12. So just played for the school team, and I had a few friends that were sort of playing boys clubs. So went to Archie Vale. So it was one of the sort of local clubs not too far away, and joined there and sort of played there from under 12s, and had a season under 18s there before I went in full time at Hibs. But really enjoyed it, and we were quite a successful team. They were one of the stronger teams through the East, but we'd done well over the years, and then they sort of carried on. So they've had a good sort of reputation of bringing players through.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you grew up a Hibs fan. Who were your kind of heroes when you were growing up?
At the time, sort of Steve Archibald was at Hibs at the time, so Andy Gorham, Gordon Jury, people like that. That was sort of their time at Hibs. So Hibs were sort of back in the way playing games and things. So mid-tables and stuff. So and then they obviously won the Skull Cup just 6 months before I joined Hibs. So that was great that time. Obviously that thing about the takeover, everything else, but won the Skull Cup then was a great achievement, and then joining 6 months later, it worked out well.
Brilliant. And when you joined Hibs, do you remember who scouted you and what the process involved? Was there any other clubs looking at you?
At the time, there was a few. Falkirk were there as well. Jim Jeffries, Billy Brown were at Falkirk, so I had a couple of trial games at the time. At Falkirk reserves, playing there when it was all Brockville. So played a couple of games there. Got invited up for a game. Reserve League East were playing. It's like a sort of third team for Dundee United against Forfar one night. Jim McLean was there. Obviously, he's now passed away, but he was mile past the team. So managed to play a game for them. So that was interesting. We're actually getting beat 2-1 at half time. So there's a few raised voices at half time and things not meaning, but we went back to win 5-3 or whatever. So it was an experience. So I had a couple of games and a couple of trials at other teams, but when Hibs came, because they were local and everything else, that was the one I ended up going to.
Brilliant. And then obviously your youth days at Hibs. What was your memories of your youth days? Obviously there was some good players you came through with as well.
Yeah, I think it was just back then there wasn't many of us. I think there was no youth team, so at the time there was the first team, there was the reserves. The good thing about the reserves was they played on a Saturday at the stadium. So if the first team were playing Hibs at Rangers at home, we were playing Rangers at Ibrox.
Right.
Maybe got 100 fans or whatever, but you were still getting changed in the changing room. You were still going to the park. You're playing Celtic. You're playing at Parkhead. You're playing at all these big stadiums. And back then we were only 3 subs, so it was 2 subs and a goalkeeper. So whoever wasn't on the bench would play in the reserves on the Saturday. So you were playing against. I remember playing Aberdeen one time. It was Ian Jess and Scott Booth, and one time playing Celtic was Charlie Nicholas. He was there for the second spell. So all these sort of players that you'd seen on TV and things like that end up playing reserve football and stuff like that. So it was definitely different. But probably the different thing was going in there as a young boy. Still then you still have sort of YTS ground staff sort of duties. You were like cleaning the stadium. It was still our job in the afternoons to get brushes. If there'd been a home game, to go and collect the litter around the stadium and stuff. You know what I mean? You were cleaning boots, you were cleaning, changing room floors with mops and all that. So you come in there thinking, oh, this dream, and then all of a sudden you've got to start at the bottom. But I think it was character building, and it obviously done me no harm. I mean, I know they've done away with everything else now, but back in the time, that's what you did, and you just had to get the head down and get on with it.
Yeah, definitely. Alec Miller was the manager of Hibs at the time. What was your relationship like with him at the start, and what was he kind of like for you when you were starting out?
He sort of came in and sort of said, "This is it. This is where you start. You've got to work hard and sort of work your way up." And he was, I really enjoy working for him. He was thorough. He sort of in control. You didn't answer him back. There was like that sort of fine line. Nobody sort of crossed. And he kept it. But for being a young boy, he would take us. He'd take the younger boys out for extra sessions in the afternoon. The manager would be there. We played in Reserve League East, which was a Monday night. And we played games like maybe Arbroath away, Forfar away, Montrose away, Arrow away, just teams in the East on a Monday night, and he'd always be at the game. So I think how it's sort of changed now, obviously managers got a lot more on their plate now and everything else, and a lot more work. But back then, he was couldn't be at reserve games because the first team played at the same time, but any midweek games, any youth games, if they maybe at a Sunday game, things like that, under 16s, he'd be there. He was there every game. So in every training session, he was always on the training pitch every morning. Not mean so you turned up when you turned up. So first team finished training, he was across watching the young boys training and things like that. So he was always around. So you're always looking over your shoulder, knowing the manager was about. Yeah,
definitely. And when you got to the stage where you made your first team debut, do you remember who it was against?
Yeah, it was against Kilmarnock. It was the last game of the season, 1995. It was at Rugby Park, so it was. I played at the old Rugby Park before they had the stand, so it was. It was the new Rugby Park, and I think it was like maybe a $5 to get in that day. So I can't remember turning up on the bus, and there was queues of people to get in. I think maybe kids got in for free or something at the time, and Bobby Wilson and I we actually won 2-1. We went 1-0 down. Paul Wright scored for Kilmarnock that day. But it was great, and then we 1-0 down. We came back and won 2-1. It was the last game of the season, so it was a great feeling. It was a big crowd. Like it was nearly full, the stadium. You're thinking like for a Hibs Kilmarnock game, you look now, you'd be lucky to be half full. Not what I mean, but back then Kilmarnock were going well at the time, and I think it was one of these games, the last game of the season. You got in for a $5. Kids went for nothing. Not what I mean, it was just generated a really good atmosphere.
Yeah, and obviously there was some good players and characters in that Hibs team at the time, like Sir Jim Leighton, Darren Jackson, Michael O'Neill, etc. Who did you lean towards for kind of support, and who was good for the dressing room in that days?
They were sort of good. Jim Leighton's experience of playing with Scotland and everything else, and he was sort of quite quiet. There's a few sort of older ones. At the time, Tom McIntyre had been centre half, but he had dropped out, so he was in the reserves. So the year before, so I played with him in the reserves and things, and then coming through, Michael O'Neill was good. He didn't stay too far from. I was still living at home, my parents stayed and stuff. So used to meet him going and training because he could drive and stuff. But he was different character. He always had an answer, a comeback. I mean, if he was always wanting to start an argument in the changing room, and Darren Jackson was always loud and stuff. So back then, your young boys just a case of keeping quiet and keeping out the way of the ones there.
Definitely. You obviously the next 3 seasons you progressed pretty well. How did you think you were getting on in the next 3 years? You solidified a place in the team. Did you feel you were progressing well?
Yeah, I thought I was progressing. the following season, after making my debut, the following season, managed to get in the team and get a run of games, and then probably inexperience, rashness, diving into tackles, got a couple of red cards, got a couple of suspensions, took myself out of the team and didn't get back in. But then obviously Artmore moved on, Jockey Scott came. That summer we signed Brian Welsh. He had signed, so as soon as he took over, he signed John Hughes. Another centre half, Jim Duffy took over. He then signed Sean Dennis. So every manager that kept sort of taking over kept signing another centre half. So kept down. So it felt it was progressing well, although new more experienced centre halves were coming in at the time.
Yeah, and that season, the 96-97 season, you spoke about Jockey Scott obviously coming in, but that season you stay up with a playoff win against Airdrie. Was it? Did you feel as if the team was on its last legs and it needed a bit of freshness into it?
Yeah, I think the fans have sort of turned away because results weren't going well. Altmore had left, then Jockey Scott came, we'd got off to a good start. We beat Rangers not long after he took over, and then we got to Christmas time, Jim Duffy came in, but we had a squad, and I think at the time quite a lot of players had sort of moved on and got money was starting to be generated in football with TV and stuff, so a few had moved on to bigger teams and stuff, and it was hard to sort of recruit the players, and we struggled a bit. And then we went through a bad run and got into the playoffs, and then we managed to beat Airdrie 1-0, but then we went 1-0 down the second leg and we managed to come back and win 4-2. So that was sort of the scare, and you're hoping that would sort of kick us on, but we had a good start the following season. Then we fell away, and then end up getting relegated or whatever.
Yeah, and obviously you said there about John Hughes coming in. You get a favourite John Hughes story for when he was at Hibs?
Yeah, well, it was always good. He was the young boys. It was old stands. He used to have a boot room, so he'd go by there in the morning. He would always. By that time, I was off the young boys clean the boots and stuff, but he would always get the fire extinguisher out and hose them down. Or another one he liked, he'd be coming after training. He was strong. Really muscular, so he would just go with an old gym under a stand, and he'd say, "Give me 5 minutes." So he'd go in there and he'd pump all the weights as heavy as he could, and he came back and the veins were popping out and the muscles were like that. He said, "Look at me," and all this. So, but he was definitely a character. You could hear him before you could see him. And then some games, even one game, I don't know what happened. It was we played Motherwell, and I wasn't long in the team, and he was playing, and then Dougie Arnott came on a sub, and it was about 10 minutes to go. And then the ball went up to Dougie Arnott, and about 10 seconds later, Yogi just came right through the back of him and just cemented him right from the back. And he's like, "That'll teach you for last season," or whatever. I mean, right now I thought, what have we got here? But he's a definite character. You have to be on your toes with him about.
Yeah. Alan McLeish comes in as manager after Jim Duffy leaves. Like, see, obviously you were a centre half, and Alec McLeish probably one of the best centre halves Scotland produced. How excited were you to work with him?
It was good. He was really motivating. He was a good sort of man manager. He came in, we were obviously struggling at the time, but he sort of gave you confidence, and it was good with the centre halves, and defensively we'd done well. He managed to bring a couple of players in. He brought Brian Gunn back in Bowie, back up from Norwich, so he gave us experience there. And he'd done well, and at the time we were on a bad run, but we turned it round a bit with a great one against Hearts. I think it was the year they finished third, and went on to win the cup. We managed to beat them near the end of the season. We went to Parkhead. Your Celtic won the league, about 3 games to go, and got a 0-0 draw through there. So results really picked up, and we were unfortunate. Second last game, it's between ourselves and United, and we were 1-0 up, going into the last 10 minutes, and we hit the bar, and then we sort of fell away and got beat 2-1. But we definitely improved on them. I think if, in hindsight's thing, but I think it came in at the end of February. I think if he had come in a bit earlier, maybe start of January, we could have stayed up. But it was great working under him, and really enjoyed it, and he really lifted the place. He had that sort of presence about him as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And the end of that season, you get relegated. Like, was it so for you? But was it always like, obviously your contract was coming to an end? Did you think you had the potential to stay in the Premier League? Like, did you not? Was that kind of the reason you left?
Because the season had gone quite well and played a lot of the games, then I knew my contract was up. But waiting to see what happened, and then Hibs wanted to just offer me another year. At the time, so Brian Welsh had been out injured. John Hughes had come back from injury near the end of the season. He was back fit. Sean Dennis was there. They'd just gone and signed Matthias Jack from Germany. So they'd got like 4 or 5 experienced centre-halves ahead of me, offered a 1-year deal, and it was just sort of felt like I was keen to stay, that I was always going to be dropping down the order and probably get less chance of playing. And then fortunately, Paul Sturrock at St Johnstone, he was keen to take me on board at St Johnstone, was keen to give me sort of 3 years. And I seen it as a good move, a chance where I could go and sort of try and establish myself playing week in, week out.
Yeah. And how do you kind of look back now in your time at Hibs? Was it good just to play for your boyhood heroes?
Yeah, it was good. And then, I don't know, because it was the first club, but I always look back on sort of happy memories. Okay, it probably didn't work out. They probably didn't win many games you would have liked. So you'd have a great cup run or things like that. But to play for them and the sort of characters and the team they had and stuff, and to play with these players, it was definitely team spirit. And the team, I don't know, it's over the years, I think it's the way society's gone as well. Teams aren't as close as they used to be, sort of going back maybe 20, nearly 30 years. You know what I mean? They're all closer bond between the players and that. They stayed, because players were at clubs for a lot longer, so there's a much more bond between them. So, but really enjoying my time there, and still now getting to that age, I'm 45 now, so still playing former Hibs games, although it's not been on the last year with lockdown, but it's good to meet up with some of the players you played with and get the boots back on and stuff.
Brilliant. You move on to St Johnstone. You said that Paul Sturrock signed you. He signed you, and then a couple of games in he leaves. Do you remember what happened and why he left?
Yeah, so we got off the season before they finished fifth, and we got off to quite a good start, and I think he was getting sort of good publicity in the papers and stuff. But Dundee United at the time, I think Tommy McLean was in charge, and they got off to a bad start. I think he got sacked, and so that was the rumour Paul Sturrock to go back, and they came in for Paul Sturrock. So I think, having been at Dundee United for so long as a player, and with them coming back, it was too good an opportunity for him to turn down.
Yeah.
He went back there, so it was good to work under him, and John Blackley as well. So it was only sort of pre-season, the first sort of couple of months, but then again it was another good manager, and he went on to do well in England and stuff. But he was definitely one of his that straight in. If he'd tell you if he'd done something wrong, not mean he'd like to point the finger and sort of shout and ball and that after games and stuff. But it kept you on your toes, and you knew you couldn't cross that line. Yeah.
Sandy Clark gets a job. Were you excited to work with him?
Didn't really know much about Sandy Clark. Obviously knew him from his time for being a Hibs fan. Remember seeing him playing up front for Hearts, scoring goals against Hibs and stuff, and scoring goals in his career. But didn't know much about him sort of managerial wise. But as a young boy coming through Hibs, I knew he took sort of the youths at Hearts and the reserves at Hearts at the time, and lots of younger players there really liked his training and stuff. So wasn't sure what to expect. But he came in and we had a really good season that season.
Yeah. You have a great start, and you solidify your place in the team really quickly. But one of the games I want to touch on, obviously before the cup final, was the 7-0 defeat to Rangers at McDiarmid Park. Like, was that just a brilliant team you were up against that game, or was it?
Yeah, I think that season there was a lowest in the league. They'd gone out in their strength. So Dick Advocate had taken over. So if you look at names like Arthur Newman, people like that, Amaruso was there at the time, Stefan Kloss in goals, George Alberts was still there. Like of Van Bronckhorst, things like that. So the players they had at their disposal were good. That night we didn't play that well. We ended up losing a couple of early goals, and at 3-0 we got a player sent off. So probably in hindsight, we probably should have said, "Look, bringing our defender on, shut up shop. We'll just keep it down." But at the time, we thought, "Oh, we'll keep in this." And second half, so we had to go, and he just picked us off, more space, 10 men, and they just kept raining in shots, and before you know it was 7-0. I remember looking up and it was 7-0 and looking at the scoreboard, and it was like 81 minutes gone. I was thinking, just blow the whistle now, don't let another one go, and just blow the whistle now. So it was it's definitely, because going into that game, we had been on the back of a good run. You're thinking, oh, we can cause an upset here, we can do something here, and then lose a couple of early goals, get a player sent off, and we're probably a bit gung-ho, maybe too much attacking, but it's probably in hindsight we should have said, right, look, we're going to just defend, not lose any, and just see the game out here, sort of thing. But that was a hard one to take.
And a couple of weeks later, you get into the League Cup final. It was a massive turnaround to get to that final really early. You go up against Rangers. Were you worrying it was going to be another defeat like it was a few weeks beforehand, or were you going to have a bit of confidence?
I think because of that 7-0, it sort of shattered their confidence a wee bit. So we're sort of set up to make sure that we're going into that game, we're not going to leave ourselves wide open to lose lots of goals. So we sort of played more defensively, although we did manage to get the goal back and keep it 1-1 for a time. But we made sure that even when we went 2-1, probably if we hadn't lost that game at 7-0, when it went 2-1, probably half an hour to go, we'd have probably gone more attacking, brought more strikers on, really gone for it. But I think it's always in the back of your mind after sort of that hammering that. So I think that's it. We're on a good run getting to the final, but that getting beat 7-0 a few weeks before, I think sort of knocked us a wee bit, although we've done a lot better in the cup final. Just in the back of your mind, it's still there. If we're too open, what can happen?
Yeah. See that cup final, how big a feeling was it for you personally to be able to play in a cup final at Parkhead?
Yeah, it was really good. It was the first cup final I played in, so it was at the time Hamden was getting redeveloped, so it was at Parkhead and full house. And it was a great day. It was just it was a tough one because after getting beat 7-0, because usually going to a cup final, although you want to win, you think we can cause an upset here, but having get beat 7-0 3 weeks before, it is in the back of your mind. Whereas sometimes you go into a cup final and you think, right, we've got a right good chance here, but we did have a chance, but it was always going to be very difficult. But it was just a great occasion, and so it was always great to get to a cup final.
Yeah, you finished third in the league that season. It was an unbelievable achievement. Obviously, the first season in the SPL. Who did you feel were the good players in that team alongside you that kind of helped get up that high in the league?
Yeah, I think Paul sort of built a team for a couple of years previously, but alongside me at centre half was Alan Kernighan. He had been at Man City and they managed to get him on loan because he was out of favour, and Man City had gone through a lot of managers at the time, and he got him up, so they managed to get him up on loan. But he had gone for, I think it was $1.5 million from Middlesbrough a couple of seasons previous. He played in the World Cup Republic of Ireland, so somebody with him and his experience just being in the team gave sort of everybody a lift. With Alan Main in goals, he was in the fringe of the Scotland squad at the time. He was good. Gary Bowen, next to United Rangers at fullback. With Alan Preston, that's now does the radio. He was playing midfield with Paul. So with an experienced team, and we somehow managed to get Roddy Grant keep going up front. Not mean he was didn't have many legs, but he could put himself about, and he became a sort of hassle. So, and with boys like Danny Griffin that came through, he was playing with Northern Ireland when he was 18, 19 and stuff. So with a few youngsters, but with a good experienced team, and we were fortunate that season we hardly had any injuries. So with a settled team, we can get. The other one was John O'Neill that ended up going on to the Hibs a few years later. Whatever, she had a really good season that season. So with a settled team, an mostly experienced team, and we managed to go in sort of week in, week out.
Would you say that was the best season of your career?
Probably where we finished wise, because it was sort of the first season, sort of winning these games, everything else. Probably Dundee United, we finished third with Dundee United, but because you was getting late in your career and the way the sort of career gone, you felt like that was an achievement. Because you were just sort of young, you were playing week in, week out, you're winning games. You just felt this is a sort of norm. It's only when you come away from that and maybe join a team and having a couple of bad seasons, you're thinking like, I remember that season there or whatever. So it was one of the best ones, yeah. And I think nobody really expected us that season. Rangers won the league, Celtic were second, and it was us and Kilmarnock fighting for third. So if you look at Aberdeen, were down sort of bottom half, Hibs were in the division below, Dundee United were in the bottom half, Hearts were sitting about mid-table. So if you look at now for St Johnstone to be third, come out third, not mean I don't think that would achieve for a long time, not mean.
Yeah, definitely. The season after, you go into Europe, you play the first round, but you pick up an injury in September. What happened?
Yeah, it was just the end of that first season. I'd played every single game, every minute, every single game. There was 3 games to go. It was about 5 minutes left to go. We're playing Motherwell at home. It was 0-0. Went up for a header. With Don Goodman was up front at Motherwell at the time.
Yeah.
But arm went up and he jumped up underneath and it dislocated my shoulder and it couldn't pop back in. So it's only time touch would have been an ambulance. So had to get taken off the pitch, and the ambulance, the full-time whistle had gone, so the ambulance was going back up to the local hospital. So they said, Ryan, make your own way up, we'll take you in the back. So had to go up to hospital, get popped back in. Missed the last 2 games, and then came back, got scans on it, rehabbed it. They thought we'd just go back into place. And then pre-season, got a bang on it, it came out. So they said, because you've done pre-season, the season's about to start, we'll get an operation on it, but keep playing until you do it again. And managed to get through the first 6 games. And it was, unfortunately, it was Motherwell again, before we played Monaco. On the Thursday night, it was a Saturday, it was Lee McCulloch, went up for a headered it, and he just clattered into the back of me and just, because the shoulder was loose, it just popped it out.
Yeah.
And then that was it, just unfortunate. It was 4 days before we played Monaco, and so had to go for an operation, and was out for 12 weeks after that.
And you don't play again till February. You come back into the team though, and you solidify your place again. Like, how good were you feeling being at the club that was doing really, really well? Did you feel as if that your career was progressing well?
Yeah, I felt that time I'd gone well. Obviously, I had the setback, been injured, and missing that 3 months, but playing week in, week out, and people were sort of starting to take notices in Johnstone because they were getting to later rounds of cup stages. They were in the top half of the league and things. So people were starting to take notice, and it's an experienced squad. They've got a few younger ones, and I think my boy thought Scott midfield, he moved on to Sheffield Wednesday, and John O'Neill obviously moved to Hibs. So a few had sort of got moves, and teams were starting to scout and look more at St Johnstone players.
Yeah,
and felt they were progressing well at the time.
And the one player I want to touch on, one player I thought was always really, really good when I watched St Johnstone was Nathan Lowndes. How important was he to the team?
Yeah, he was really good, especially that first season he came in. Paul Sturrock got him from down south, had been released by Watford, so Paul Sturrock brought him in, and he came on trial, and he was a fit lad and ran, and then he just got he went on a run of games where he just right areas and scoring goals. And he's a really good finisher. Manchester lad, he actually still lives in Perth now, but he came up and done really well, and it was just nobody really heard of him. Young boy being released by Watford, Paul Sturrock got him up on trial, and he came in the team, and he was excellent and scored goals, and that's probably the reason we didn't score that many goals that season. But him scoring the goals probably took us to like third in the league and got us fun in the competitions.
Yeah, and the season after the 2000-2001 season, you signed a new contract. Was it obviously just improved terms? Was it the plan to be there for as long as you could be?
Yeah, because football sort of changed slightly. Because at Hibs, what had happened, even breaking into the team, you took wait till the last game of the season and stuff. But what had happened at St Johnstone, sort of Bosman ruling had come in at that time. So at Hibs, even when you're a younger boy, your contract would be up, and then you'd maybe on a year's contract, you go and see the manager, he'd sit you down, you'd be on a seat, sitting down here. He'd have a big high seat, and you'd be looking up at him, and you're thinking, all right, I'm maybe due a £50 wage rise this year. And he'd tell you all the things you were rubbish at and you couldn't do and all that. And he'd offer you the same terms and then hand you the pence, you just sign it and you'd be happy to get the deal. Whereas with the Bosman ruling coming in, I'd got an increased more money going to St Johnstone, and then Setanta had just come into football. And the football was on, and it was before Setanta, so it was Sky. So it was 6 o'clock on a Sunday was the Sky games.
Yeah, that's right.
So there was a lot more money in it. So it was a good contract to offer for 3 years, and they were trying to tie players down. So they spoke to me. I still had a year of my contract left. I was like, "Listen, you'll happen. Usually wait till the season's finished and then get an offer." Not mean, but they were offering me an extension, so it'd be another 3 years. And because the first 2 years had gone really well, we thought, "Oh, security, everything else. Here, I'll sign here," and then signed the contract. And then, unfortunately, the next few seasons didn't work out as well, and we ended up getting relegated.
Yeah, that's right. He's finished 10th that season, the 2001 season. How different was it from the feeling of the first two seasons when you were trying to start in 5th to then be kind of finishing 10th, kind of fighting relegation? What was the big differences?
I think we got off to a slow start, and then we picked up just before Christmas. It was still the time where you had the winter break in January, and we'd actually got ourselves into 6th, and we're sort of neck and neck with Hearts getting top 6. That was the first season where the league split into top 6 and the bottom 6, and we were just on the fringes of it. We're just neck and neck with Hearts. I think we were sort of joint 6, just above and just below them. And then we came back after that 3-week break, and we got knocked out of the cup by Dunfermline. They were in the division below. We picked up a few injuries, and we went on a bad run of games. And I think with the league splitting, and it was the first time, then I think it was that sort of realisation from the players that we're not going to get in this top 6. And then some players' contracts were up and they weren't getting renewed, and they were trying to change the squad. And I think it was one of these things that people felt, "Oh, well, that's the season over." And I think the bottom two, I think it was St Mirren United at the time, so we had more points than them, so we weren't going to get dragged into a relegation fight, but we weren't going to get in the top 6. So we just sort of, the season petered out and we ended up finishing 10th, which was a sort of big disappointment compared to where we were in sort of January. Yeah,
definitely. Sandy Clark leaves at the end of that season and Billy Stark comes in. Were you sad to see Sandy Clark go?
Yeah, because he had done well. Everything else, I think it's always hard when a manager leaves. He had been there 3.5 years and he was close, and he was always on the training pitch and always in amongst the players and stuff. So it's always upset when it goes, when somebody goes, and we're a close-knit bunch when he left and stuff. But results hadn't gone well. It was probably unfortunate because the players we had, the older ones, had moved on, they'd got older, then maybe going to maybe part-time leagues or French playing, and then the better ones had maybe been sold or moved on, and then trying to get players on that sort of same budget is becoming more and more difficult because more teams had more money and things like that. So recruitment, things like that, was hard to sort of place the players we were losing, and it was just sort of, and we started slipping down.
Yeah. One player who was really good for St Johnstone, has obviously had a great career, was Paul Harley. Could you see he would go on to be as good as he became?
It's got a story. He was good. He was a winger. He was good crossing and stuff. But actually, when I was at Hibs, he came in the first season. We were full time. He came in. He came in training on trial. And I always remember John Burridge saying, he was still at Hibs at the time. I forgot when the characters at Hibs, John Burridge, he was there. And he always says, he reminds me of young Pat Nevin and that, because at the time, Paul Hartley was like a tricky right winger.
Yeah.
Great crosser. And when we signed for St Johnstone, right winger, good ability, good on the ball, good deliveries, good free kicks, everything else, wide right. But then he sort of fell out the team a wee bit, and it wasn't until probably the following season, until Billy Stark came, he made him a centre mid, and his career just took off. He moved into centre mid and then got moved to Hearts and then moved to Celtic. But at the time, he was just sort of like a sort of tricky winger with a good crosser out wide, and he played away out wide right. And then, but I think when he came into the middle of the park, he got more of the ball, and his sort of creative talents took off.
Yeah, the season, the 01-02 season, you go 13 games without a win. Did you have a feeling that there was just going to be this was the kind of beginning of the end of St Johnstone's run in the SPL?
I think we got off the bus. That was one of these ones that you go back pre-season and we had a few injuries and a few players had left, and they're trying to sign a few players and had fallen through and they didn't get them over the line. So we started pre-season. It probably hadn't gone as well as planned. We were probably a little bit short of numbers. Pre-season games were disappointing. We played lower league teams and got poor results. So confidence was probably a wee bit low when we started the season, and we got off to a poor start, and it's just that sort of knock-on effect. And then we struggled to win games, and then Billy Stark came in, and you're hoping that get a kick. And we came close. We were leveling games, and we lose a late goal, and it was just like a kick in the teeth. And then that run continued, and then the rest of the team started pulling away. So you thought it's going to be hard, but we did pull it back, and we got closer to the teams around about. It was at Christmas, but then we fell away again, and that was it. But I think if you get off to a bad start and you're always chasing it, it's hard. Unless you have a big turnover of players in sort of January time, you can sort of spend your way out. It's difficult to then turn it round and then change it around, losing so many games to then go back winning 4 and 5 and things. Yeah, and unfortunately you get relegated at the end of that season, and you go down to the first division. Were you expecting to go back up, or was there worries that was the sort of plan? So we cut obviously they had to cut the budget and things, so a few players had left, but we had sort of a nucleus of quite a good squad, and Billy Stark we've got a few ones in. So we actually I think we won the sort of first 4 out of the first 5 games. So we got off to a good start. Unfortunate thing was, at the time, Falkirk, Ian McCall just was backing at Falkirk, so they had sort of John Hughes was still playing, Lee Miller, Mark Kerr, Colin Samuel, Owen Coyle. So they had a great squad at the time, and we were just unfortunate. I think they won the first 5 games. So most seasons gone by, we would have been top of the league after the first 5 or 6 games, but because they had got off to a great start, we're always chasing them, and they beat us in the first round of games, and then opened up a lead, and we got closer to them, maybe 3 or 4 points around Christmas time, but then they pulled away again. But I think we're unfortunate because they were such a strong team. Maybe the next again season or whatever, we could have been up there challenging more, but because they pulled away, then it became the season sort of petered out a wee bit. Yeah, and the last season of your time at St Johnstone, it was the last year of your contract. Were you always kind of planning to move on at the end of the season, or was there talk of you staying? I think that sort of got to that stage. I think it's what happens a lot of players, because I signed that contract, things have been going really well the first 2 seasons. As I said, TV money, so got an improved contract, everything else for the Premier League, and they were expecting to be sort of top 6, pushing later stage of the Cup. Hadn't gone that well, ended up playing the first division on a good contract, and they probably felt that that should have been doing more. So they were sort of think financially were keen to get me off the books anyway. So I knew if they did offer something, it would be on sort of reduced terms. But I think they thought, and probably best scenario, probably gone a bit stale. I've been there 6 years. Been a long time, a lot of change over the players, and probably that last season probably didn't have my best season ever. So it was probably time to. It's probably like sort of the best all round, just to sort of move on. Yeah, Max was part of Lynham was at St Johnstone that season. How good was he, and was he a good character? Yeah, he was. He's obviously strong, competitive. I'd played against him and stuff. So he came, Billy Stark brought him in. He was really good. He was staying in Edinburgh at the time as well. Something to travel through him a few times, but he was good, really encouragement, really motivated and things. And it was just unfortunate. He was just getting to the later stage of his career, but he had some games. He scored quite a few goals for us at the start of the season. Then he picked up a knee injury, and he missed the sort of second half of the season. But big character and definitely big aggressive type. At the time, John Hughes was still playing with Falkirk, so it's one of these, the ball would go up, the ball would move, and the two of them would just clatter into each other. Not what I mean, so it's when you see Mixu coming in and training, you wanted to sidestep him. Not you don't want to get hit by him.
Brilliant. Was it always Inverness? Was there any other clubs looking at you?
At the time, I've only been lucky to be fortunate. Only twice in my career that I've been out of contract in the summer when there's not really been like a move straight away or that. So after getting there, I was hoping that I could maybe try and find somewhere and speaking to sort of championship teams and things, but nothing really came up. But so the way it worked out, Inverness won the league that season, but we played Inverness in the last game of the season up there when they won the league. And it wasn't until after the game they won the league in Donald Park. I'd worked under him at Hibs, a young boy. He was there as assistant manager, and just speaking after the game. And then he was just saying, Bobby Man had signed for Dundee, so he was leaving to go to Dundee. He says, we could be in the market for half. What's your plans? And it just says, not got anything. He says, well, we might be in touch. And it's maybe about 6-7 weeks later, he got in touch and ended up going up there. So it was, but nothing really else. Other options were sort of part-time. Got a few other part-time offers, but wanted to keep. I was only 28 at the time, so I was keen to stay sort of full-time and try and play. But at the time, probably thought championship. But then Inverness had just gone up, so there was a chance to stay in the SPL. So it was a good opportunity.
Yeah. How do you look back on your time at St Johnstone?
I think it was really good. The first two seasons were first season couldn't have asked for any more. Going there, finishing third, getting to a League Cup final, getting to semi-finals of the Scottish Cup. Next season playing in Europe, so it couldn't have gone any better. And then obviously a wee setback with the shoulder injury, and then probably gone. But still, if I hadn't signed this sort of new sort of 3.5 year deal or whatever at the time, probably looking back, it'd probably been better to maybe leave a season or two earlier than I did. 6 years probably overstayed. They're probably progression wise, probably best to maybe leave after 4 years or 5 years, but 6 maybe just a wee bit too long. I'd come to the stage where it's probably looking back now, gone a bit stale. It's probably time to move on a wee bit earlier.
Yeah, you made the move to Inverness, and obviously you move up north. But how were you feeling about moving up to a lot of different part of the world, basically?
It was definitely different. So, so we had club houses or whatever. So stayed with a couple of younger boys, David Proctor and Darren Thompson.
Right.
So we travelled. So I had a place, my girlfriend at the time in Edinburgh. So we travel up on a Monday. So there's a few of us at States. We used to train Monday afternoon. So we'd leave at 9, and then I would come back. Some boys would come back. I used to come back Tuesday after training, and then drive up on a Thursday morning. So leave the house at 6:15. Pick one of the boys up at the West End in Edinburgh, 6:30. Meet one of the boys from Glasgow 7:20 in the Boxing Roundabout, and we had to be in for 9:30. So by the time you got there at 9:20 to get changed for training, you're like, I've been up for hours. Not meaning it was a long day, but just got on with it. But at the start of the season, it wasn't too bad. But it was this time of year when it got to January, February time, it was like dark mornings, dark nights.
Yeah.
Definitely took its toll, but it worked out really well. But it was just travelling up and down. And at the time, we had a good team spirit. John Roberts and Donald Park built a really good team spirit. All the boys were friendly. It was something different. It was a sort of new environment, something new. So it worked out well.
And obviously, you said there about John Robertson building a good team spirit. Who were the good characters in the dressing room when you went there?
We had quite a few. Barry Wilson was there. He'd been around there for a while. So obviously, Ross Tokley had been there. Fullback, he'd been there for a lot of years. Shooting ball back as a captain. A few. Richie Hastings was there as well. So there was a few in there. Roy McBain. So ones that had been there, and because of the squad, quite a lot had been there as they'd come through there, and maybe in League One and Championship, and quite a lot were from up in the sort of Highlands as well. So it was a good sort of club, and they were all coming through and all pushing each other. Yeah,
John Robertson goes to Hearts. He takes the Hearts job. Were you surprised he was leaving? And then obviously your teammate Craig Brewster gets the job. How did you feel about John Robertson leaving?
It was one of the other things that I'd only been there about 3 months. John Robertson got there, but then the rumours at the time, I think Hearts wasn't sure who. I think Craig Levine had just left to go to Leicester.
Yeah. So
an opportunity. John Robertson obviously taking Inverness up. I think the previous year he had beat Celtic in the Cup as well. So had good publicity, and it was an attraction because he was there for so many years as a player, sort of club legend, to go back there. So I think when they came calling, He couldn't say no, so he went. So it was one of these things. You've been at the club 3 months, and you're thinking, like, who are we going to get as manager next? And then Craig Brewster took over, who I think we played Dunfermline a few weeks earlier. I'd been playing against him. He'd been playing up front, so he came in there as player manager, and I think it worked out really well, because at the time we're probably a wee bit short in the striker department, and then he came as a striker, and with his experience, I think he scored about 8 goals. He couldn't play till January because obviously his transfer window and stuff, but I think he scored 8 goals from January to the end of the season, and chipping in by these goals helped pull us away from the bottom few teams and nearly got us in the top 6.
Yeah, you finished 8th that season, and it was a good first season for you. You get the players player of the year. Were you pretty happy with your season, how it went?
Yeah, so going there at the start, so played quite a lot of pre-season games, but John Robertson decided to go with the team that had got them promoted, so he wanted to keep them together. So I had to be patient on the bench, and then fortunately they played Kilmarnock and Stuart McCaffrey got sent off, so I managed to get in there. I think that was about the start of October. Got in the team. The team hadn't won that many games. We managed to beat Dundee midweek, managed to beat Livingston on the Saturday, and we had a good run of results. And then Brewster took over, and he just sort of kept it was, and we sort of picked up. So managed to sort of cement my team in the place and the team, and it worked out really well till the end of the season.
Yeah, the season after, you're going on a 11-match unbeaten run. Like, was Craig Brewster getting a good tune out of the team at that point?
Yeah, I think he sort of came in there. He changed training because he'd been sort of abroad and stuff, and he joined in as well. And he had a really good first touch, really good finisher. Obviously, he's come to later stages of his career, but just having somebody like that join in training, team training, instead of the boys saying, "Oh, what do we expect to do here?" But they're watching him, and he's finishing, and it might be a windy day, and he's still finishing, he's still hitting the target. He was still really fit for his age. So if we were doing like fitness work or we're doing runs, he was always up the front. So. And up there as well, the players had that mentality. Well, he's a manager, he's not beating me, so that would sort of push them on as well. So they were sort of more determined. But he brought in things like strength and conditioning. It was just starting to come into football at the bigger clubs, but he brought that in. So we started doing that on a Tuesday at the local college, at their strength and conditioning gym. So he brought that in. We started doing like spinning sessions maybe on a Monday, going to the pool with Valentine's up there, well, names for that. So we're going to the pool. And things like that, pool sessions, thing. So it's changed a lot of the training. It was a sort of freshness, and nobody really sort of done that sort of training before, and it definitely spurred everybody on.
Brilliant. And obviously, Craig Brewster leaves. He takes the Dundee United job, and Charlie Christie comes in. Like, what was Charlie Christie like, and did he kind of change all that?
I think him coming in, him being an ex-player, and he was still around at the club. A job in the commercial department once he retired, because he'd been at the club for years. So then he came back in sort of temporary basis when Craig Brewster had left, and we went on a good run. I think we had a good run in the Scottish Cup, and we won the league games as well. So he decided to take the job. So he just sort of kept with a steady squad, quite a strong squad, and he just sort of kept everything the same, ticking along, and we started to pick up results. And everybody sort of knew their job, everything else, and we just kept everything going, and with a good end to that season.
Yeah, Craig Brewster tries to sign you for Dundee United. Were you keen to go with him?
I had another year left to go, but I really enjoyed working for him, and then obviously a chance to come. Inverness had worked out really well, but it was a chance to get back down the road, cut back on the driving. Obviously Inverness had been great, but Dundee United had that potential. Not mean to. Nothing against Inverness, a great club, but a bigger club. There was a chance to go back there. I was just 30, just turned 30 or whatever, so it was a chance to go back, probably last sort of move sort of thing, and was keen to go. But I still had another year to go at Inverness, and they were keen for me after Craig Brewster going. They were keen for me to stay, so they were sort of starting to look for money. So it was one of these things. I think they were maybe holding out for £100,000, and Dundee United were maybe offering like 35,000. So it was the thing. But for me, I was 30-year-old. I'd been released from St Johnstone 2 years previous. Nobody really wanted me. I felt minimal fee at the most, not mean, but at that time, but it was haggling between the two, so end up staying at Inverness. Yeah,
you handed in a transfer request at the start of the next season, and the United had bids turned down. Is it hard to keep focused when there's a kind of transfer saga like that going on for you?
It wasn't too bad, because it's sort of Inverness out of the way at the time, but Dundee United were keen, and the agent I had at the time, he was obviously he's an agent, so he was trying to get the move happening and stuff. So at the time he says, "Oh, Inverness didn't want me to go." They said they didn't want off enough money. thought Inverness was holding it for too high a fee, felt like to go. So he said if you put a transfer request, it'll force their hand, it'll make Inverness, they'll not want to keep an unhappy player, they'll let you go, sort of thing. So it took his advice and put the transfer request, but then it got turned down. And at the time, then speaking to a few sort of experienced coaches in the game, and felt, and looking back on it in hindsight, I wouldn't do it again. He felt it was a sort of kick in the teeth to your own teammates. I mean, you'd worked so well with them, and all of a sudden you say, right, a move comes along, I want to leave, although I'm still under contract. So once it got knocked back, I then sort of realised it was probably the wrong decision, so withdrew it, and then just sort of get the head down and kept working away and played that season out. So at the time, but if I had time again, in hindsight, probably wouldn't have done it at the time. So I took the wrong advice and thought it was a way of forcing through a move. But looking back in hindsight, it got knocked back. But I was more than happy to stay at Inverness, and the last season actually worked out quite well.
Yeah, and the last season in the January, you signed a pre-contract with Dundee United. Like, was there a bit of tension with the fans and kind of players, but the fact that you were stating your intention to leave at the end of the season?
Not too bad. So after Craig, obviously Craig Brewster got sacked from United in October, so I thought that the move had gone. That was it. That was the end of it. But in January time, Craig Levine approached, and then said he was keen. He was building a young team. He was keen to get an experienced centre half, and would I be interested in coming? And it was a great opportunity. And Craig Levine really sold the club and thought it was a great idea. So at the time, they says, "Oh, I don't know what's going to be like." And then, fortunately, I think 2 weeks after I signed the pre-contract, we played Dundee United in the Cup. And then people were thinking, "Oh, is he going to play them?" And then Charlie Christie spoke to me and says, "Oh, I'm not sure if I can play. You know, just if maybe you're at fault for one of the goals, people say it's because you're going there anyway," sort of thing. So, but anyway, he decided to go with me, and I ended up playing, and we ended up winning 1-0. And it was like a sort of backs to the wall game for the last 20 minutes. I think I cleared about 2 off the line and headed a shot away, goal bound shot away and stuff. You know what I mean? So I think after that, people realised, like, okay, I'm going there in the summer, but I still got a responsibility to my teammates and to the team I'm at just now. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
okay, but it could have been one of these games where if you're unfortunate to score an OG, people will say, "Oh well, he wasn't really trying this and that." But fortunate for me, it worked out okay that day.
Yeah, brilliant. And at the end of that season, you leave obviously to go to Dundee United. How do you look back on your time at Inverness?
I think really well. So I went there after having a couple, probably not my best seasons at St Johnstone, a wee bit stale, but it was just a sort of freshness going up there. It was a drive in, some of their new teammates, everything else. And one thing about the squad is they were really competitive, even in training. The tackles would go in. It was physical. John Roxon worked us really hard, so it was really sort of physical. Everybody pushed himself to the limit, so it was a good environment. You had to sort of keep pushing yourself, train to your sort of maximum every day, and it sort of gave me sort of a new lease of life and kicked on a wee bit, and it worked out really well and got that wee sort of kick on again. Although seeing I'd maybe gone a wee bit stale at St Johnstone, that sort of pushed me on and moved on to Dundee United and sort of progressed. So that after having that dip the last few years at St Johnstone, Inverness sort of kicked me back up again.
Yeah, and you go into Dundee United. How excited were you to work with Craig Levine?
Good, sort of good reports. Remember him playing, obviously as fan playing for Hearts and stuff, and then he was obviously unfortunate to quit the game early because of his knees and stuff. Yeah. And he spoke, and players that worked under him sort of spoke highly of him. So it was good in the way I sort of sold the club. He signed on a 2-year deal and says, "Okay, your experience depends on what young players coming through." Gary Kenneth was there at the time. The young boy Keith Watson, he had a few knee injuries that held him back, but he was building a young team, new players. He said, "One experienced player to sort of help these youngsters come on. You'll probably look to play most of the first season, but second season, you'll probably be sort of pushed out and get younger players in, but I'll give you a 2 years deal anyway." And fortunately, ended up sort of being there for 4 years. So maybe overstaying my welcome, but it worked out really well.
Yeah, and you play alongside Lee Wilkie, and like, how good was he to play alongside?
Really good. So it was we got up a good understanding, especially that first season playing alongside each other. So, and looking back, you're thinking he had already had 2 cruciate knee operations, and that did hold him back. He wasn't as mobile on that side, and he had screws and everything else in his knees. And some days he couldn't train every session, especially when it's hard ground that was indoors or things like that. But to keep himself going and playing at that level, I would have loved to have played with him when he was like at his peak before the injuries. Obviously played for Scotland. I think if it hadn't been for his 2 bad knee injuries, we've got a lot more caps for Scotland, and maybe although he played with Dundee and Dundee United, I think he would have maybe got like a big move to a good money move.
Yeah, definitely. You have a great start at Dundee United. How were you kind of settling in? Was it a good start for you?
Yep. So I think Dick really worked on the defence, and with a really hard pre-season, it was sort of more sort of old-fashioned one. Went the army base up at Condor, up at Arbroath, and he put everybody through their paces, double session. So we got sort of really fit and really organised, and he brought Willow Flood up from Cardiff on loan, so he pulled in a few good loan signings. No Hunt up front, so we had a good, and he brought a few. John Daly was there, Sean Dunn, so he brought a lot of good players in together, and we all sort of gelled, and with a really good start, I think the confidence just built.
Yeah, and obviously the run up to the League Cup final, like obviously that was 07-08 season against Rangers. How gutted were you not to play that game, and what was the reason you didn't play?
It was gutted that way because the semi-final we played Aberdeen in the semi-final 6 weeks before, and it was a great occasion. So it was at Tynecastle, and I know they make the semi-finals go to Hampden now. We speak about it a wee bit later, but at the time, semi-final still got played at neutral venues. So I remember going as a fan, and that was great. A neutral venue. It was Tynecastle. It was a Tuesday night. Aberdeen, 16,000. The place was packed. Not I mean, we went 1-0 down. I scored to make it 1-1. We went on to win 4-1. It was a great night, and it was like 6 weeks time we've got the final, everything else. So really looking forward to it. But in that spell, it was me and Lee Wilkie playing at the back. Gary Kenneth was on the bench, but the spell leading up to it, my form dipped a wee bit. I don't know why it was. It was always around sort of the dark nights of January, so the end of December, January time that my form would dip a wee bit, and form dipped. He chopped and changed the team to keep people fresh. Unfortunately, I had a few poor games. We got knocked out of the cup by St Mirren. I was poor that day. Gary Kenneth came in the week before the cup final. Next to Lee Wilkie was excellent. They played Celtic Parkhead. They drew 0-0. He was excellent next to Lee Wilkie, and he kept him. Although I played just about most of the games, Gary Kenneth played 4 or 5, but he just came into form at the right time. And I suppose if any manager would do, somebody's playing really well, somebody's maybe a wee dip in form, that's what happens. And unfortunately, it was on the bench. So it was disappointing at the time, even the build-up, because he never named the team till the day before. So you're still thinking, I've played in all the rounds, played in these games, this and that, and changing the team, I'll still be in or whatever. And then to find yourself on the bench. But it was one of these games that we were in the lead, and then we lost a goal, then it went to penalties and on the bench. But then I suppose it may be different if you're a striker or a wide player, things like that, if you're on the bench. But on the bench at centre half, you know you're only really going to come on if somebody gets an injury or something happens. So the chance of coming on are limited. So it was disappointing, but it was good to get there. But being on the high score in the semi-final, looking forward to the final, just wish the final had been the next again week, because I probably kept my place and been in the final. Not I mean, but it's that 6 weeks. But lots of other people have probably been in that boat as well. Not me, you just had like a dip in form at the wrong time.
Yeah. You ever call up the Scotland B squad? Do you remember how that came about?
We were playing well with them. We're doing well, and I think Lee Wilkie, they'd been watching Lee Wilkie because he had a really good start to the season. Alan Police was in charge of the B squad. He was putting a squad together, and Lee Wilkie, but I think he just picked up an injury or something, so he just missed out. I think we tried somebody else, and then they looked, and at the time, 31, I was thinking like, I played in under 21s in like 1996 and things like that. I was thinking, over 30 now, it's gone. I mean, it's a masters for me, not meaning. And then Craig Levine just pulled me one day at training and says, "Oh, they're putting together a B squad. And the police asked you to go along." So we just come completely out of the blue from going from probably 3.5, just over 3 years ago, where I'd been released by St Johnstone in the Championship, struggling to find a club to get a call up for a B. It was like an unbelievable sort of turnaround, and then it was great to go along to the trip, because it was Kevin Thompson, Charlie Adam, Crystal Lumu, then all the sort of players came from McNaughton. There's a lot of ones came up from down south for that game as well. Not I mean, so just to be in that sort of squad and being around that, I think Michael Stewart, thank you also there, but just being around that sort of squad and being part of it and played at half. So it was just great. A great, after getting to that age, I think it now passed you by. Obviously, been sort of 10 years earlier, been in under 21s and playing under 21 games and thinking, oh, maybe one day. But then just to create, it doesn't really happen. You get to 31, you think, oh, that's the chance gone. But it's just a great occasion, and just really happy to be being part of it. And then you've seen the players and you've seen the level they were playing at and everything else. It gave you that wee sort of wee boost. Because most people think when you get to sort of 20 to 29, that's you sort of overhill, that's it, sort of gone, sort of thing.
Brilliant. And obviously the second season was quite a kind of, it was a sad atmosphere at the club after the chairman Eddie Thompson passed away. Was it difficult for the club to kind of focus on the playing side of it with that going on?
I think he was always there. He was at the time we always met at Tannadice in the morning, so we trained at a couple of junior pitches in Dundee. We trained at a pitch at one of the schools in Dundee, so we always met and got changed there. We always had our lunch upstairs at Tannadice, so you always seen Eddie moving about, even towards the end of his illness and stuff. But you always seen him, and he always came up. And he was one of these chairmen that he understood you couldn't win every game. You know what I mean? He was one of these chairmen that don't worry, boys. It didn't go for us this Saturday, but come next week, we can turn it. Come next week, we'll get back to winning ways. And he was always positive. And even if somebody didn't have a good game, he said, "Oh, it wasn't your best game, but you've been great the week before." And he was always around the boys, and the boys always felt like, obviously been in football a long time, you get some chairman that you get beat, you go back on the bus, and the chairman's on the bus, and he's growling everybody comes on the bus. You know what I mean? He's like, "I'm paying your wages, and you're giving me that." But Eddie Thompson seemed to understood you couldn't win every game, and he was all the players. So it was obviously sad with his illness and that when he did pass away.
Mm-hmm. And Craig Brewster tries to sign you again. This time he wants to take you back to Inverness, but you sign a contract extension. Was it difficult to say no to Craig and obviously commit to Dundee United again?
I think at the time it had gone well at Dundee United, and I think Craig Brewster had been quite keen over to go back because he had gone back there to Inverness in a second spell. But I think after being there and then obviously I'd gone to Dundee United, I was enjoying my football there, and I was quite happy to stay. So it wasn't that hard to think, but it sort of made my mind up that if I did get offered an extension, I would stay there. So when it came up, I think it maybe had been different if I hadn't been playing at Dundee United and I was out of favour and I hadn't played many games, and they were looking to move me on sort of thing. But because they had offered an extension, I'd played most of the games since I'd been there, then I was keen to stay.
Yeah, definitely. He's finished 5th in the season after. Craig Levein makes another signing with actually Andy Webster on the show, and he says just how good the kind of structure was at Dundee United. How did you feel about Andy coming in?
Good. So it's that sort of thing. Because it's by that time 32, 33 was more sort of mature players, so players come in, but it's the thing you see at a lot of clubs, like when for younger players, if players come in, like good players come in, they think, "Oh, I might lose my place, this and that." But I've always seen it as a bit of like, it's more competition. What can I learn from him? Everything else, and obviously I'd had these injury problems. He'd done really well at Hearts, gone down south, come back. He was at Rangers at the time. We took him on loan, and he came in, and Lee Wilkie had picked up an injury that season. At the end of the season, he had got an operation, so he was going to miss the start, and Andy Webster came in, and it was really good. A really good leader, organiser, excellent caps for Scotland, and that was a really good player. And learned a lot, just his position and everything else. You know, I was older, but just playing next to him and stuff. But I think, and also he still had his injury problems and stuff. So, whereas I was the opposite. I had to train. If maybe one week you're maybe carrying an injury and you didn't train all week, but you still had to play on a Saturday. I'd play on a Saturday, but I always felt sluggish and we probably not have my best games, and maybe be off the pace a wee bit. Whereas Andy Webster was the type that he could maybe not train for 2 weeks, just do his own bit in the gym, come out on a Saturday, would still play at that sort of 9 out of 10 level, not mean, which it was great for him. He could keep himself focused and he could keep himself sharp even without actually doing it on the training pitch, which he managed to do really well.
Mm-hmm. Who were the good characters in that team? Obviously, it was the Scottish Cup season, but who did you feel were the good kind of characters in the dressing room?
Andy Webster was there. David Goodwillie was there at the time. He was always chirpy. He was always loud and stuff. He was there. Danny Swanson had come in, coming from Berwick, so he was there was nothing away. So it was good, and everybody was sort of close. And Craig Conway and John Daly had the sort of the Irish connection. Sean Dillon and stuff. So it was a really good connection, a really good between all the boys. The more sort of local ones, and that were quite a few Irish players at the time. So it was a good wee sort of bond, and younger ones coming into the team. So it was definitely lots of sort of banter in the changing room and things.
Brilliant. Craig Levein leaves to take the Scotland job. Were you sad to see him go?
Because I got on really well with him, and liked him managing that. But then I think when Scotland came calling, and I think it was that bit. Dundee United, they wanted to qualify for Europe, we just missed out. But that was sort of his aim. But I think it's at that stage where at the time you had Celtic and Rangers, it was always going to be hard to break them up. Not mean so maybe winning a cup and probably getting into Europe, that was probably the aim. But we came close on a few occasions when he was there. But it probably felt like, and as a manager, that the Scotland job was probably the next step up the ladder for him, sort of thing. So I don't think you could sort of turn it back. So then he sort of moved on, and it was a gap left when he left.
Mm-hmm. Peter Houston takes the job. Were you glad that it was Peter Houston that stayed and kind of kept the structure that Craig Levein had built?
Yeah, I think so. I think players were happy. So obviously he worked with Craig Levein. He'd oversee things, and maybe we'll take training later in the week. As Peter Houston would take training at the start of the week, so everybody knew what his training was like. Everybody knew what it was going to be like. So it kept everything muchness, kept the squad together. I think because he knew most of the boys, he knew what we could do, so he kept us together. And then when he took over, we went on a great run, ended up finishing third in the league that year and getting to the Scottish Cup final.
Yeah, what was the run like for the Scottish Cup final? Were you playing well? How did you feel about it?
We had the first game, Partick, we'd got a bad, got beat just over Christmas New Year time. We got beat 7-1 by Rangers. That time, we had that defeat. So we'd actually gone. I think we lost 3 early goals. It was midweek. It was a Wednesday night. It was snowing. It was cold, and we were really poor that night. And we got to beat 7-1. So we'd been on a bad run of form. We played Partick. Through Partick, they were hoping to cause an upset. They were in the Championship at the time. We managed to beat them 2-0. And then the next game was St Johnstone away, who were going well under Derek McInnes. And people were talking about an upset there. We were just a wee bit hot and cold at the time, and we managed to win that 1-0. And then we got Rangers at Ibrox, but they were obviously still playing on all fronts. And it's funny back then because it was a Scottish Cup tie against Rangers. It was at Ibrox on a Sunday. I think it was a 12 o'clock kickoff on BBC Scotland, but then it was big holders didn't count. So I think there's maybe only about 15,000 people in Ibrox that day. They went 3-1 up, and I think they thought that was it. And we got 2 late goals and managed to take it to a replay. And we probably got lucky to scrape a 3-0. They should have been outside probably, but we managed to take it to a replay, got it back to Tannadice on Wednesday night, and we managed to beat them 1-0, scoring the last, David Robson scores in the last minute. But
yeah, that's right, yeah.
That took us to the semi-final.
And the run at the final against Ross County, like, what was the feeling like to win that Scottish Cup?
It was great, but unfortunately I got injured just before the Scottish Cup final. But it was but just going back to that, when we played in the rounds leading up to it, and then we played. We're playing Raith Rovers in the semi-final at Hampden on the Sunday, but the Saturday game was Ross County against Celtic. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We beat them. We'll get Celtic in the final, so that's going to be a tough one. So I think it's Celtic going to win. So we were training that day before out in the pitch. So went upstairs at Tannadice after our lunch to catch the second half, and Ross County scored. It was 1-0, and you're thinking, wonder if they can hold on. And you're watching the Celtics having attacks, and then they get a second. So we're staying. We went away that night to the Westerwood Hotel, and we're staying there, and you're thinking, Ross County in the final. We've got a championship team, Raith Rovers, mid-table in the championship, in the semi-final. We won that. We've got Ross County in the final. What a chance we've got to win the cup. But then we went out and we played Raith Rovers. We won 2-0. But it was the occasion. It was at Hampden. It was on a Sunday. It was about 20,000 people there. So Hampden, there wasn't that much of an atmosphere. We'd been better playing at Tynecastle on a big crowd and all that. But it was at Hampden, 20,000. It was for me, after the semi-final, the quarter-final, the replay against Rangers, winning 1-0, live on TV at home, full house at Tannadice. That feeling of winning, the beating Raith Rovers. You walk off the pitch at Hampden, nobody had sort of felt they played that well in the semi-final. We'd won 2-0. It was a sort of an anti-climax, even though we'd got to a cup final. But just going back to that point, I'd got booked at the time. If you got 2 bookings in the cup, you got suspended for the final. So I knew I was carrying a booking going into the semi-final. And then I remember Gregor Taddy was playing at Raith at the time, and he was out wide, and he got away from me about 10 minutes to go, and I slid in and I pulled him down. And I remember looking around thinking, the ref shows me a yellow card, I'm going to be suspended for the final. And luckily enough, he must have felt sorry for me. The card, and I thought, oh yes. But unfortunately, 2 weeks later, we played Celtic in the lead, and I tore my cartilage and I missed it through injury anyway. But these things sometimes go for you. I thought that day that I was going to get a yellow and that would take me out the cup final, and then luckily enough I never. But then I get injured 2 weeks later, and then that's it gone.
And the final, was it just a brilliant experience for the team just to get that victory, especially after the manager leaving halfway during the season? It was some achievement to get the Scottish Cup.
Yeah, I think it was just a great day. And then people had said, Dundee United Ross County, is it going to be full? Then it was talked before it, or is it going to be? It's only going to be half full. You've not got any half of the old firm. What's the crowd going to be like? But it was a great occasion. I think there's nearly 30,000 Dundee United fans, and then Ross County. It was just a great atmosphere that day, and we got the goals, and it was a great occasion. And then coming back on the bus, and then the next again day at the City Square with the trophy and stuff, and the open top bus round Dundee. It was just like a great occasion, and it was great just to be part of it.
Brilliant. Your last season, you only played 4 times. Was it just the injuries kind of getting on top of you again?
Yeah, because probably been fortunate with injuries. Only dislocated my shoulder. That was the only injury I had previous, but sort of tore my cartilage. So 4 weeks before the cup final, it was against Celtic, and I carried on in the second half till the end of the game, and knew something wasn't right. Went for a scan, needed an operation. So usually when I come, usually just one of these players that probably from in my 20s, that would, when it was pre-season, when it was a close season, we'd probably take a couple of weeks off, but training myself, so I always came back fit and ready to go for pre-season. But unfortunately, when I got the cartilage op, my first day back was I was just back into rehab. So started that season, I was behind everybody else. They were starting back pre-season. I was just starting doing like jogging, so I was about 2 or 3 weeks behind them fitness-wise. Found it hard to catch up. So got sort of rushed through and played a few pre-season games, but was off the pace and was sluggish. So started the season on the bench, but managed to get in and played a few games and done quite well. We went on a wee run. We beat Ross County in the cup. We beat St Johnstone in the league. Got in the team, then got a bang on the knee. And at the time, the same they had the operation on, I thought, oh, it's just a bang. I thought it was bone bruising, but the knee kept locking. But it wasn't until I got scans and they had to operate on it, but I'd actually chipped a bone. Part of my bone had come off my knee, and it was locking my knee. So I had to get an operation. We'd had to drill into the bone, let it bleed, and that was the cushioning for it. But that was like the major operation. So it was 8 weeks on crutches over Christmas. So it was that was 2010. So that's when really heavy snow and everything else. So I was having to get about on crutches every bit of a sledge or whatever. So and then that was me out for the rest of the season. Because I had 18 weeks, I wasn't allowed to do any jogging or any running or anything else. By the time it came back, that was the season over. So that's probably the only season in my career where injuries probably sort of wiped out most of the season. But for play for that number of seasons and only have one season like that, lucky in my career.
And obviously that was your last season at the club. But how do you look back on your time at Dundee United? Just
I think it's great memories, and it was probably we met St Johnstone where the greatest word. First went there. Barry Robson was there before he was moved to Celtic. Lee Wilkes, Craig Levine had brought in players from all different teams and brought them together, and we gelled really well. And it was moved up. When I signed for Dundee United, when I was at St Johnstone, I always travelled from Edinburgh every day there. When I signed for Dundee United, Craig Levine says, you're over 30 now, you need to stay closer to the ground. So they sort of put me up in a flat in Broughton Ferry. So I stayed up in Dundee. It was only meant for 2 years, so my girlfriend went up at the time and we ended up staying for 4 years, and it worked out really well. Based up there, and then just staying up there and then being close to the ground. And then we moved to train at St Andrews, and it was just really good times. Really enjoyed training, really enjoyed the games. I was just unfortunate, got injured in that last season.
Yeah, definitely. Stephen Presley signed you for Falkirk. Were you excited to go there and work with him?
Yeah, so I'd missed most of that season with Dundee United, and then but just coming back fit towards the end of the season, and then got a phone call because I knew that I wouldn't be kept up 36 at the time. That was me sort of finished at Dundee United. So then Stephen Presley says, he's at Falkirk, we're building a team, sort of challenging. I think they finished third the season before. We want to try and come back up. So there's a chance to stay full time. I missed a lot of the season. I wasn't sure how much interest there would have been because of my age and being out injured, but he was keen. He was looking for somebody experienced at the back. I was keen to sort of get back playing, get back training, and then went to Falkirk, and it worked out really well.
Brilliant. He names you captain as well. Was that a privilege to be named captain of Falkirk?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially just sort of going there, and then he says, "Oh, once should be leader, lead from the back, use your experience, got a young team." And from previous years, they overspent, and then obviously going down, they have to cut back. So there's a lot of young players coming through, and it was the oldest one more experienced, then Michael McGovern, the goal that went on to Norwich.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it's a really young squad, but it worked out really well. Had the experience and sort of leadership, whereas the younger ones had sort of the legs and the energy around about me, so we sort of complement each other quite well.
Brilliant. Who was good in that team when you went there?
Yeah, it's obviously Michael McGovern in goals. He done really well, but with a few young ones, Stephen Kingsley was coming through at left back. Tam Scobie was there at the time. He sometimes pushed in a wee bit and played at centre half. With Murray Wallace, who played at centre half, he got moved to this field. He's now at Millwall. Carol Higginbottom, that's now Kelty Hearts. He was there. He got that field. I think it was Jay Fulton was in that team coming through.
Yeah, he went to Swansea, didn't he?
Craig Sibbald, who had potential, but he's now at Livingston, having a good career this season at Livingston. So with a lot of good young players coming through, with Friedel Agui up front. He went on a great scoring run and catapulted us up the league, and then he got moved to Brentford. So we had one or two experienced players, but on the whole, it was younger players coming through that really kicked us on.
Yeah. Did you enjoy playing again? Did you enjoy just being fit and kind of playing as much as possible?
Yeah, I think that was the thing. After being out for so long, and then my age, and then even the surgeon saying, "Oh well, if you manage to get back playing, don't get the same level, you might have to go part time. You might only have another couple of years left." And after being out for so long, just to get on the training pitch every day, because that's what you're used to, and then playing games every Saturday, then it was a great feeling. And then because we were winning games, we got to the Ramsden Cup final that year, and we won the Ramsden Cup final as well. So it was really good, and got to the League Cup semi-final against Celtic that year as well. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, definitely. You scored the winning goal in the Challenge Cup final. How good was that?
That was really good. I think going back there, getting to that spell, you're thinking, oh, your sort of cup finals and things are maybe over. And then to play the Ramsden Cup, obviously hadn't played. Obviously played that final with St Johnstone. We got beat. Missed the 2 with Dundee United, so hadn't got a winner's medal or anything else. Had played and won, so and they played that Ramsden Cup, and then I think we got a corner after the first 2 or 3 minutes and scored that day. And myself, we were in a bad run of form going into that game against Hamilton. The form was quite good compared to our form, so I think they sort of went the game slight favourites, and to come away that day with a 1-0 victory and scoring the winner and being the captain and lifting the cup was a great occasion, especially at 36 years. Sort of these days, I'd sort of passed you by.
Yeah, and then the next season, obviously, Stephen Presley takes the Coventry job. Were you disappointed that he was leaving to go elsewhere, and did you enjoy your time with him?
Yeah, it's really enjoyed working under him. He had his own way of doing things and everything else, and some people took to him, but I got on well with him. I remember playing against him, and he gave me the opportunity to go in there, and he sort of sold the club and everything else. But I think he was looking, Falkirk were cutting back. He was maybe looking to progress in management and things, so he moved on. He left, but the second season, I'd missed the start of the season, picked up a hamstring injury at the start of the season, but then got back in for 1 games, and we got to the Scottish Cup semi-final that year.
That's right.
Just before he left, we won the quarter-final and got to the semi-final, and he left, and then we ended up finishing third that season, but it worked out quite a good season as well.
Yeah, Gary Hall gets a job, and were you keen to stay the season after, or were you kind of thinking you were better kind of going into coaching elsewhere?
I was keen to stay because by that time I was going to be 38 in that summer, but because the season went well, I think I played about 28 games that season. But as I said, we got to the semi-final of the Scottish Cup and had a good run in the team, and we finished third and played most of the games. So I felt I've done well this season. I can keep going for another season, get it going. But then obviously Stephen Presley left, Gary Holt came in. He was looking to get like a sort of younger squad, more players in, so put his stamp on it. Contract was up, and that was it. He just says, "Oh look, you've done well, but I'm going to try something new, get younger players and everything else. So thanks, but there's no contract there for you, so it was sort of time to move on after that."
And you spent 2 seasons there. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. I think what helped as well, at the time we were training at Stirling Uni, the university, we had a base there. John Hughes had got the base there, so we had really good pitches, with full access to the gym at Stirling Uni. We had the swimming pool for like rehab, everything else. So it was great facilities, and just to be back training every day, playing in a team and playing games. It was just great to be playing on a Saturday again and training every day.
Brilliant. Dick Campbell takes you to Forfar. Was that more to were you getting into coaching at that point?
That time, because I played sort of most of the games the previous season at Falkirk, was keen to keep playing as long as I could. But it's that sort of thing. It was only the second time. The time at St Johnstone, I didn't have a club, so the season I came, played all these games with Falkirk, got to the end of the season, never got a contract. Still thought I could play in the Championship, so wasn't sure because of my age. I thought it'd be hard to get full time, but was keen to play for a couple of part-time teams in the Championship. It never came. Dick Campbell was on the phone, I think, probably about 2 hours after it released. I think he was friends. Alex Smith was still at the club, so I think he was friends with him. So I think he tipped him off. So Dick Campbell came on the phone and says, "Look, son, I want to take you to Forfar. You've got 40 hours to make your mind up. Dick, don't wait for anybody. Tell me yes or no." So at the time, I thought, look, I still thought I can still play. There might be other interest from somewhere else. So I said no to him first of all, and then it's one of these things. A few weeks later, you're thinking the phone's not ringing. Not mean it's a chance to keep playing, and phone them up, and the old Dick says, "Oh, I'll have to see what I can do." And then he come back 5 minutes later. "I just keep you sweating." And that says, "All right, there's a deal on the table for you if you want." And then it was great to work under him. I think obviously stayed in good stead. I think going from obviously went into management, Brechin a couple of seasons later, but I think if I'd gone from full time into sort of part-time management without that spell at Forfar, I think it would have been a lot harder. I think being there, having worked with Dick Campbell, because obviously a character, and he's done brilliant at part-time teams over the years, and just the experience of working under him, how he sort of manages the sort of part-time players and gets the best out of them, it was really good. It was like really sort of, because getting to that stage, I was 38 at the time when I went to Forfar, but that stage of your career, it brings it fun, makes it interesting, and keeps you sort of motivated and fresh.
You got a good Dick Campbell story?
I think it's just his team talks. It was always when he starts a team talk, it was always like an after dinner speech. Not I mean it was some story about when he went to school, or he worked down the pit in Fife. Not I mean down the coal mine or whatever. But then sometimes he would say he must have had it written down a bit of paper, so because he would name the team, and then maybe a row, it was like 5 on the bench at the time, but there was maybe 9 players in the squad. He would sort of tap them on the head and say, "Yeah, you're on the bench today, son. No, not you. You're on the bench." And then he's maybe tapped 6 on the head, and his brother Pink would say, "Dick, you've got too many subs." Oh, right. And he'd go back and he'd say, "Sorry, son, got it wrong. You watch for the stand today." But that was just his way. Not mean everybody loved it, and then you went, and it was just that way, and he had these bun it, and he'd throw it down and stuff. But he brilliant manager. He had these contacts, and he got the best out of sort of part-time players. And you've seen the clubs he's been at. Obviously fought for the second season. We should have got promoted. We sort of blew it in the playoffs, but we came close to getting what he's done at Arbroath, taking them up. So part-time, and even Brechin years gone back, getting them up as well. So part-time level, he knows the players to get, and he can manage them and get the best out of them 2 nights a week.
Yeah, and your second season there as well. Did you still feel fit? And like obviously, that was the last season before you went into management. Did you feel fit and you could still play?
Yeah, it was still going well, and because we were going on a good run at Forfar, and we were up challenging for the league. That was the season Morton won it. Stranraer were up there, but with we're behind them, but we weren't a great run towards the end. But with 3 games to go, we're top of the league, but we ended up getting beat away to Peterhead. Another 2 jumped above us, and we just missed out and got in the playoffs. But playing every week and getting results in League One, I always felt like my legs would sort of give way, and I'd think it right. Once I was off the pace, I was costing goals. I wasn't getting a game. It'd be time to hang the boots up. But because I was playing every week, we're getting good results. We were on high. We're pushing up the league. I felt, I can keep going for another year sort of thing. And then obviously went to the playoffs, and we won 3-1 the first leg, and it was Dick Campbell arranged a hotel for a celebration, and all the wives and girlfriends and everything else were there after the game for the Alloa game. He had booked out this hotel in Alloa. We're 3-1 up for the first leg. We're going down there just to see the game out, and we ended up losing 3-0. It was probably one of the worst nights. Everybody's just sitting there just wanting to go home. Not me. It's just like when all the plans are made and everything else is made, and it just completely goes wrong that day. But it was just one of these occasions.
Right. And then after that, obviously the management job at Brechin comes up. When did you first hear that they were interested in you for that?
I think it sort of came up. Ray McKinnon had moved on, and at that stage, I was sort of keen to get into sort of management role. Thought it was an opportunity, so I sort of put a CV in for 1 or 2 things, and then it came up. Ray McKinnon left. I thought, I'll put the CV in, but at the same time, put the CV in, an application in. Dick Campbell had offered me a new deal at Forfar. So I says, I'll wait and see. I'll see what happens. And then Dick, I'd sort of jumped the gun a wee bit and says, I'd signed again for Forfar, but hadn't actually told them I was going back. I still said I was still unsure. So then got in call for an interview at Brechin, went for an interview, thought I'd gone quite well, but wasn't sure what was going to happen. And a couple of days later, got a phone call from the chairman at Brechin and just says, we'd like to offer you the job. And then that was that. But then he says, have you committed to Forfar next year? I says, no, I've never said. I said I was still thinking about it. So then obviously took over the Brechin job. But it was it was great. It was a great opportunity to get. But the problem was it was just taking over. It was the middle of June. So by that time, quite a lot of part-time players had been signed up. So we were just trying to bring a squad together quickly as soon as you took over.
Yeah. Who did you bring in that first season to join you?
Yeah, so had Lee Bailey. I've done a wee bit coaching with him over in Fife. He would be at Hibs a few years above me at Hibs, and I'd seen him on a few coaching courses. So I played former Hibs games with him and stuff, and I brought him in. He had actually played at Brechin when he was younger as well, so he came with me as the assistant. So it was just the two of us. But going in there, I was still playing. I played most of that season, so I was playing. He was on the bench. He was on the bench himself. I was playing, so it was a difficult first season with myself still playing, and then doing the team talk, set pieces, and then I'm on the pitch. He's on the dugout. Then we're trying to communicate. I'm at centre half, trying to shout to the one side of the pitch, bring the sub on now. Who will I take off? So maybe I had something written down beforehand. Maybe then somebody's going off injured, so he can't take him off. So he's not sure then who to take off, and he's shouting on the pitch, and I'm shouting back, take him off. Don't want to shout too loud on the pitch, you know what I mean? But so number 10's coming off.
And see that first season, obviously, he's only won 4 out of the first 26 games, so he was struggling straight away. But a remarkable 8 out of the last 10 wins to stay up. Like, what changed? How did it change so much? And how did that end of season run come about?
I think as I said, like we're sort of behind everybody getting players in, and probably the first job, we didn't get the right players in. I probably didn't get the right players in. It didn't really work out. First job, made a few mistakes, and we always thought we were going to pick up, but we didn't. It got past Christmas, and then we got a bad 4-1 defeat by Albion Rovers midweek, and we played Peterhead away on the Saturday, and we got beaten. We went 10 points adrift at the bottom of the league, and we're coming back on the bus. And I remember sitting in front of the bus, so obviously next to me, and the directors and the board were there, and they were all quiet, and we were sort of whispering to each other. And we got to about Aberdeen on the way back. We thought, this is it. We're going to get called into the boardroom as soon as we get back to Brechin, and we're going to get sacked here. And we got off the bus, and the chairman says, "Can I have a word?" And thought, "Oh no, here it comes." And he just says, "Oh look, we've got a board meeting tomorrow. Discuss your future. We're playing Forfar midweek." He says, "Your old club, you'll probably take a wee bit stick from the crowd. How do you feel? Do you want to still take the team for the game? If we're undecided about what to do, or would you rather just sort of walk away now?" And I said, I hadn't played the previous few games, but I sort of made up my mind that I was going to play myself against Forfar. I said, no, I want to. If the opportunity comes, I'll still want to be here on Tuesday night. I want to play. So went out that night and played. And the team talk that night was, look, this is it. We didn't expect to be here. We thought we're getting sacked after the game on Saturday. We're here Tuesday night. So if it's our last game, we'll just go out, we'll give our best and see what happens. And unfortunately, we won 4-0 that night. And I scored the second goal that night from a corner. So it couldn't have worked out any better. And then we won that on the Saturday. We beat Ayr on this. That was a Tuesday night. Sorry, won on the Tuesday night. We beat Ayr on the Saturday night. Then we carried on and beat Ayr the following week. Then we beat Albion. So we won 4 games in a row.
Yeah. And
it just went on for that. From standing there, I think sort of the players, that realisation, we had good players, but we'd underachieved. But I think we actually had a good spirit in the team, and they had sort of respect for each other and everything else. But I think that sort of dawned on everybody that we're going to get relegated. Manager's going to get sacked. This is it. And we just sort of had that sort of determination, and we went on a great run. And not only did we manage to stay up, we managed to avoid the playoffs as well, and we managed to pull ourselves clear at the end of the season.
Brilliant. The second season, I want to just say beforehand that I don't think there's been a better achievement by a young manager to get that side in the budget you had up to the championship. So I'll just say that beforehand. You finished 4th, and then you get obviously to playoffs and beat Wraith and Alloa to get to the championship. Just how big an achievement was that, and what was going through your head when that whole season?
I think it was that season. I think so. Having that great run at the end and just staying up at the end with that confidence. But I think even when we were going on that run towards the end of the season, we weren't sure what was going to happen, if we were going to stay up, if we would still be here next season. But we had put plans in place. Players that we had played against, was like Ali Love, who was at Albion Rovers. I think he scored every game we played against him. We sort of made, if we are here next season, we want to get him. Chris O'Neill was coming through at Airdrie, doing really well. If we want to get him, Liam Watt, can we get these players? So we sort of spoke to them towards the end of the season, says, look, if we're still here next season, we're going to do things different. We're going to build a team. So with highlighted players we wanted to get, and we managed to get them in. And we started the season well. And after 10 games of the season, we were top of the league. Obviously, Livingston went on to win the league. Yeah. Jack lost to Alloa before they moved on. They'd got off to a good start, but we were above them after 10 games. You thought, right, here we go, sort of thing. We dropped away, but then we finished fourth. And you're just delighted we got into playoffs. We played Wraith. John Hughes had taken over, but it was a bit infighting, bit turmoil between the players and him at the time. And then we played it. That night, they had a lot of chances. We managed to get a 1-1. We went to Wraith. Everybody thought it was going to be our last game of the season. Just go out, give it your all. And they had a big crowd that day. And I think that sort of got to them. They made a few mistakes. We capitalised it. We went and we won. Then we got Alloa, but we're underdogs going in there. We managed to beat them 1-0 in the first leg. We went for the second leg, and everybody thought, oh, this is going to be it. But probably that day, we rode our luck. The final game against Alloa, they beat us 4-3. They kept scoring and going in the lead. We kept coming back, went to penalties, and it was an unbelievable day just to win that, because I think 4 weeks previous in the league, they'd beat us 6-1 previously in the league. 4 weeks in, we got a player sent off. So I think after beating us 6-1 in the league, they thought, all right, we'll beat them over the 2 legs. And we said underdogs. Everybody sort of kept thinking, oh, it's going to be our last game of the season when we played the Wraith that day. And then we got Alloa, and it just kept going and going. So it was a great occasion for what happened the first season to get that sort of success and everything else. And with a small squad, I was didn't play much that season, but I was still on the bench. I think we had like 4 subs for these playoff games, and I was one of the subs and things like that. So it was just a small squad, and we just kept going, and we played to our max, and the results went for us, and we managed to get there.
Brilliant. See the season you got up to the Championship. Like, how hard was it to prepare with it? Was it obviously a part-time budget, so it was like you were at a disadvantage straight away? Was that a struggle? It's obviously to bring in players.
Yeah, it became a struggle, but I think because you were still on a high, because we had one position, you felt that here we go, and then the budget had stayed the same as what we were on League One. And then speaking to experienced coaches and managers, were like, "Oh, you're up against it. You're right up against it. You're sure to win a game in that budget." We're like, "No, we've won the playoffs. Nobody, with outsiders, we can do this. We can." But it was a jump too far, and then even trying to get players, I think, nothing against being a good, well-run club, everything else, but trying to attract players to Brechin. You'd gone up to the Championship. The players we had recruited the season before were sort of League One players, lower league players, but then Championship, you're thinking, can we get a wee bit better one or something like that? But if they've got other offers to stay full-time or go to better part-time clubs, then it was hard to attract them. And we signed Ryan McGeever from Queen's Park. These young lad when he was at Falkirk, playing against him, he had done really well, came to us, and he broke his hand in about the first or second game, and then he got a bad ankle injury. He was out for 6 months. Andy Jackson, our top goal scorer, he had groin problems. I think he only played about 4 games that season. And Liam Watt broke his wrist. So our sort of 3 main players got injured early on, and it was an uphill struggle. And then once we were up against it, come Christmas time, trying to get players in January window, I think players would rather go into a second. It's just whether other players might have been the same, but most people would rather go to like a League One team that's challenging at the top of the league than go to a team bottom of the Championship. You know, where you'll be playing against better teams. They're thinking more maybe for their career. If they're more a creative or attacking player, I'll get more chances. I'll get more chances to stand out than if I'm going to a Brechin and we're going to be up against it each week. Yeah, and that the season, the Championship, you obviously failed to win a league game, and it was only 4 points you achieved. But do you think there was obviously that was the reason? Kind of your 3 first team players get injured, and it was just kind of a difficult budget and playing against a kind of different opposition that were just kind of leaps and bounds ahead of the team at the time, Jack? Yeah, I think we were when we came back pre-season, it's the same. It's part time. We only had 4 weeks, but it's typical we were sort of part-time, but it was still that sort of lower league thing, seen at Forfar as well, because we had people that had worked and they've got kids and they've got a family, so they get the first 2 weeks in July, so they were maybe going away on holiday with their family the first 2 weeks in July, and we had the Betfred coming up and they were away on holiday, so it was just, but obviously lower budgets for most of our players. It was their second income, that wasn't their main job, so if they got holidays from their work, they had to go at that time, so it was hard to get that. And then we did come close. I think it was October when our injuries weren't too bad injury-wise. We were 1-0 up against Dundee with 10 minutes to go. We beat 2-1 through there. We drew 1-1 with Falkirk with a great chance last minute. Dundee United 1-1 at home. They were sort of poor that day with a great chance late on, but we came close to winning games. We were 2-1 up against Inverness. I think 10 minutes to go. We beat 3-2 at home. But there's opportunities we just missed to get that sort of burden off us, to get that win. But once it went past January, trying to get players in, we tried to go for a lot of players, but nobody wanted to come. I think as well, you're trying to go for creative attacking players, and nothing is speaking, but their pitch was heavy, it was muddy, it's small changing room. So if teams like Alloa in League One were coming for them, or Wraith Rovers in League One, better opportunities for them than going to Brechin. So it was hard to attract players, and then the season just petered out. We didn't have the money to get sort of players in, and then to be fair to the players, they still kept turning up for training, they kept turning up for games, but I'd taken its toll, the confidence was low, and we were going with the same 14, 15 week in, week out, and it was just, again, we would sort of hold teams for the first 60 minutes, but you could see them tiring the last sort of 5-6 games of the season, and we just had nothing left, nothing more to put on. It was hard, but one thing I would say about them is they never gave up. They just sort of kept giving it their all. Okay, confidence was low, probably a dip in form, but it would have been easier for them to throw the towel in, but they kept going, and I think that's what I say about them. They kept going, they kept giving everything. So it was just disappointing we never got that win. If we had got that win, I think we wouldn't have stayed up, but it would have been a lot better. But it was just, obviously, the pride, everything else, not to win a game. It still hurts even now. Not, I mean, I think it still hurts for the players as well, but it's just one of these things. In hindsight, maybe look back and think, with that budget, what got promoted, was it a sign to say, look, we've taken this club as far as we can. Will I just leave and take a sideways step or whatever?
Yeah.
Or it wasn't in there because the players were still turning up and everything else, but it was one of the things halfway through the season, you're thinking, we're up against it. You put your hand up and say, look, I'll move aside, somebody else take over. But you always have in your back of your mind, we can do this, we can do it. But it wasn't to be, and it was a disappointing season all round.
Yeah, and the season after, obviously, you lose your job in October. Like, what kind of happened, and how sore was it to kind of lose your job?
I think it was hard. I think a lot of players, a lot of the fans, and at the time, this thing. So I always wanted smaller clubs. We only average about 300 fans, like local fans, but they wanted a change. They didn't really understand how you couldn't win a game and they got relegated. They wanted a change, new manager in. But the chairman, I was getting my chairman, he decided to keep me there for next season. But probably the most disappointing thing was we'd gone up and we hadn't got a budget. I think only 2 players had got a wage rise from £100 to £125, something like that. All the rest had stayed the same. 1 or 2 players even had got like a wage reduction for going up to the Championship, just the way it worked out. But we'd come down, we'd played Celtic in the Scottish Cup, we'd played St Mirren at home when they had a chance to win the league, 2,500 there, Dundee United at home. So I think we'd generated with over £170,000 profit from that season. So you're thinking, okay, well, a bad season, let's invest something in the team. And they cut the budget again. I think that was the hard bit, getting the budget cut again and knowing there. And then players have gone up, moved up a league, had a season, everything else shut up, and then having to come back down, and to going up and not getting a wage rise, coming down and having to take a wage cut. So for morale and everything else, I think it just sort of sapped out of them. And then probably in hindsight, we then coming down, we then tried to get players with Championship experience. So if we did go up again, looking more towards the future, if we did go up again, we'd be better prepared. Whereas probably in hindsight, it was a time to sort of maybe regroup and maybe go for like tried and tested, experienced League One players, so we can consolidate or whatever. But other things that didn't really help is we trained at Stirling United. That was good on a Tuesday night, but on a Thursday night we trained at Falkirk. So we had a third of pitch for an hour at Falkirk at the time, but then they cut us to a quarter of pitch that season in the Championship. So we're moving around different places. So a Championship team training for like an hour on a quarter of a pitch wasn't ideal, so we struggled for things. And then the second season, just before we got sacked, we ended up training down at Grangemouth, and we had a third up pitch, a middle third up pitch with no full-size goals for the first hour. So it was just things like training facilities.
Yeah.
Physio only came on a Tuesday night, he didn't come on a Thursday night. So if I had a midweek game on a Tuesday, somebody was carrying a knock on a Thursday, we wouldn't know if they were going to be fit till the Saturday. So just small things like facilities, physio coming 2 nights, he only came 1 night. So things like that were a problem, and we raised that at the end of that championship season, but they just didn't really change things. And I think that's maybe how they slowly declined over the previous years.
Yeah. And do you look back with fondness in your job at Brechin?
Yeah, so there was some good people, and the chairman was really good, and he was honest and everything else, and they gave me the opportunity, and really liked up there, and it was good. It was you didn't realise at the time, but obviously being from Edinburgh, was like now in 45 minutes up there. I think that's maybe another thing, because they've struggled as well now, because there's more money in the Lowland League and leagues like that now, that we had quite a lot of players from the Edinburgh and Glasgow area that would travel now in 45 minutes up to Brechin now. So if boys like that are getting the same money in the Lowland League, then they're not going to want to travel an hour and 45 minutes to play a game of football for an hour and 45 minutes back in the car. So it's harder for them to attract players. But it worked out really well. I think to go there and last sort of 3.5 years was a good spell, and obviously to get that promotion was an amazing achievement, because I think they've only been the champion, won promotion a couple of times. So it was a great achievement, but it didn't work out. But one thing about the players that gave their all, was just disappointing for the players, and probably feel a wee bit guilty towards the players as well, that maybe in hindsight should have pushed the board more, been stronger, whether it would have worked or not, but really demanded we got players in to help these players that got us up, and that would have helped them and kept them on. But it didn't happen, and unfortunately. But going back to League One, but we're sitting mid-table in League One. Okay, we'd come down, won a game the previous season, but we'd won a few games, lost a game, won a couple of games. So we're sitting, I think we're 1 point off, or two or 3 points off the top 4. We're sitting in 5th place when we got sacked. So we've got beat by Montrose the week before, the local rivals. But in terms of points-wise, in the position we're sitting in the league, felt we're mid-table, and the aim was to get in the top 4, and I think would have been close to getting in there. Not we would have been sitting about mid-table. So it did come as a bit of disappointment to get sacked when it did. Yeah,
and obviously when you leave Brechin, you move into further education. Do you enjoy doing that, and how did that come about?
It was when I was up at Inverness and we were staying up there during the week. The fitness coach at the time, he worked part-time at Inverness College, so he started some of the boys on an HNC course 2 nights a week, because we're up there, staying up there. Ended up doing that, and it was when I got injured again at Dundee United, when I was out for 8 months. Ended up taking it again, finishing it off at Perth College. Moved back to Edinburgh when I went to Falkirk. So in the meantime, we used to get a Wednesday off, so we go to college on a Wednesday and do that, and end up doing my HND. But it was when I went back part-time, I ended up going back to Napier Uni and doing a sports science degree.
Right.
And managed to do that, and then wasn't sure what I was going to do with that, and then obviously part-time and doing coaching for the SFA. Ended up when I was in charge of Brechin, ended up doing teaching qualification at Stirling Uni, and then that was a route into teaching in the college, and then managed to get a placement at Edinburgh College last year, working at New College Lanarkshire, now working at Forth Valley. So it's worked out really well. It's one of these things, being a player, I was fortunate my career went full time till I was 38, but what do you do when you finish playing? That's the thing. I mean, at the time, your mid-20s, things are going well, you're staying full time, you're even into your 30s, but it didn't really dawn on me till I got the injury when I was out for 8 months. Just before I was 36 at Dundee United, you're thinking, like, what am I going to do now? My season stopped now, what am I going to do? I kept the educational thing going in the background. It allowed me to have different choices, and it was one of the route. And I enjoyed going back as a mature student to college, even though it was part-time, it was only a couple of days a week, and then going back to uni sort of part-time. But I enjoyed that, going to the lectures and learning and stuff, and it was just a route to sort of get a job once your sort of football comes to an end.
Yeah, definitely. Would you get back into management if the opportunity come up?
I think when I first got sacked, was keen to get back in, because going back to Dick Campbell used to say, Saturday's a football day, son, not mean Saturday. Even when I got sacked, just about every Saturday I'd be going to a game, I'd friends still playing or managers or things like that, so I'd be going to games, watching games, everything else. But I think since the lockdown of sort of March and not going to games, I think you sort of drift away a wee bit. Before, Saturday was always like, oh, if I'm in the house and wife's still a wee boy or family's coming around or whatever, right, I'm going to the football, I'll find a game somewhere, I'll know somebody playing somewhere, I'll go to a game.
Yeah.
But that routine and not going to games, and it sort of drifts by. So sometimes you feel like, oh, I'd like to get back out there and coach them, but then you remember maybe that Tuesday night where you think, oh, I'm going to work on the defence tonight, and you get a phone call at lunchtime and the left back's been sent home for his work sick, and then the centre half comes up and he's got a sore ankle and he can't train, and you've got 8 players training, it's pouring the rain, and you're thinking, what chance here, sort of thing. So it's, sometimes you think, oh, you're keen to get back in there. Other times you're thinking, oh, maybe I'm best just taking a back seat and just watching it, but still enjoy. But I think that sort of buzz you get from a start, you definitely miss that sort of buzz of being the manager and being a player. But I think with lockdown and the leagues getting shut, it has made you think, like, you're always looking to that football, you're always thinking about training nights or the game or things like that. It has changed your sort of concept in your mind and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Are you all right, close with some quick fire questions?
Yep.
Brilliant. Out of your whole career, who would you say was the best player you ever played with?
I think probably going back to Hibs days, Mike O'Neill at the start, Alan Kernighan at St Johnstone, Barry Robson was playing really well. Also, was fortunate enough to, I wish I'd played one when I was younger, but my time breaking the Hibs teams, Ray Wilkins was there.
Right.
39, he came up, I don't know, I brought him in as a player, and just the way he could pass the ball. He was 39 at the time, obviously didn't have legs to get about the pitch, but passing wise and technique, everything else, he'd been great to have played one like when he was at his peak.
Yeah, definitely brilliant. Best player you ever played against?
Probably when I started off, that was when sort of Rangers was sort of Loudrop, Gascoigne, sort of De Canio, Van Hooijdonk, and obviously coming up against Larson and people like that after that. Michael Moles was good. So I think going back to that sort of era, sort of the late, sort of mid 90s, late sort of 90s, when sort of Celtic and Rangers had these top European stars. You know what I mean? I think they were the ones that, because you were younger, they were the sort of stars at the time, and you forget the players that were on show at these times at these clubs at that stage. But they're probably the ones with the sort of best players to play against. Brilliant.
Favourite away ground you played at?
I think it was probably between sort of Ibrox and Parkhead, but for me, I don't know, because maybe I had more defeats at Parkhead, but I always sort of liked Ibrox. I always felt it was more compact and stuff. I don't know if it's changed everything else. I remember playing reserve games at Parkhead before they built that the new stands and everything else. Not meaning when it was still a terracing and that, but for me, probably favourite away ground was Ibrox.
Brilliant. Interesting fact about yourself that the viewers might not know.
I think it was probably sort of going when I went part-time, going back to university and getting a sport and exercise science degree, and then obviously being manager of Brechin and getting my teacher qualification. Not mean going back to education as a mature student. So it's one of the things that it was hard to get your head around. It stuck, but really enjoyed it, going back to sort of college and university. You're in there in your 30s, and there's people like 18, 19 just out of school.
Yeah.
You're like, you must be a granddad in the class.
Brilliant. Favourite film and TV show?
I think obviously working at college, long hours, and then obviously I'm a wee boy at 8 now, it's hard to see, but things like Still Game, things like that, it's mostly sort of sport and that and on TV, but things like Still Game, comedies and things like that, things that are funny, and maybe the odd documentary on Amazon Prime or something, things that are quite funny or something about to do with sport. That's probably a TV show or whatever. Yeah,
brilliant. Best friend in football?
Probably when I started off at Hibs, the boy Michael Rennick, he played at Hibs, he went on air, he's now coaching in America, so kept in touch with him, so all through the years, he had a spell at Berwick manager and stuff, so they were probably the friends I've sort of kept with football for a long spell.
Brilliant. Final question, best manager you played under?
The one I sort of enjoyed working under, I know it's sort of sticking the press, was Craig Levine. Really enjoyed probably one of the longer spells worked under a manager, but he was the one, I think, I don't know if because it was coming towards the end of my career, I was over 30 and maybe had that influence. You were starting to watch what managers done and what they said and how they structured their team and that, but really enjoyed working under Dundee United.
Brilliant. Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show. Thanks very much for doing it. I really enjoyed it.
No problem. Cheers, Scott.
Pleasure. Thanks, Darren. Cheers.
Cheers.
You're gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through.